See, most goals go untouched because it's easier to avoid change if it threatens the status quo. So every year you set yourself up to fail, just confirming to yourself that things are hard and you can't do it. So things easy enough to sit and wonder why things aren't coming to you in life than looking at the reasons why that's not happening. What are the things that you're putting in place that are standing in your way? Because a lot of people like to avoid the hurt. Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Between the Noise, podcast focusing on reflections for busy parents, helping them try to navigate work, life and everything in between. I'm your host, Chris, a professional coach from the UK, also a father and a husband and full-time employee. Also trying to navigate this and also trying to impart the lessons of this podcast in my own mind. So in this episode we're going to look at why setting goals seemingly is so difficult, but also why you're not achieving the things that you want to achieve. And so my hope is by the end of this episode you'll be able to set them without them feeling like it's a chore, as the title says. And the first kind of core frame that I want to look at is that you're not failing your goals because they're difficult. You're failing them because you're not applying enough depth to the goal itself. The thing is when we don't ask ourselves hard enough questions and then we don't achieve the things that we want to achieve, a lot of the time we just kind of come out with a response of that's just how life is. There's no point looking any further because that's just life. And so the key idea that I want to impart here is that the problem isn't setting goals. It's about setting goals without meaning. You won't achieve the things that you want to set out and do, much like a New Year's resolution, if you think, all of these people are doing this, so I'm going to do it as well. But why are you not asking yourself the hard enough questions to understand and appreciate the things that you want to achieve? So when we look at goals, often it seems like Groundhog Day. It's like repeating the same things year after year after year. December comes round, we overindulge, and then we get to January, the gyms are full because of all of these people that have set New Year's resolutions. They go in and about 3 weeks later, they're nowhere to be found. It's the same intention, delivering the same outcome. And so you're left wondering why nothing's changed in the last 12 months, why nothing in your life has become different. And it's because you're not looking past, I want to achieve X. Great. But when we don't think deeper, X means nothing. And so you're left feeling stuck, despite all of the effort that you've clearly put in, because if you're here and you're listening to this, you already have a hard enough time raising kids, and so any goal you set is something above and beyond. And that's really difficult, and I am completely in awe of all parents when they want to go above and beyond just looking after their kids and developing something for themselves. So if you're willing to put that much effort in, let's develop the idea and develop the meaning behind those goals to help you get there and give you the best chance at success. And so when we look at that, what the kind of thing that I want you to keep in mind is that life just becomes a loop when your goals aren't connected to something deeper. Within that as well, and when we look at goal setting formulas, you can go online and there's hundreds, if not thousands, of different ways to set goals. And the big one that I've dealt with in my current job for the past 10 years is SMART goals. Everything needs to be SMART. And if you're not familiar with SMART goals, that's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. So it's meant to provide you a framework with how to set a goal that is SMART, that is more likely to be achieved. And the thing is, and one thing that I kind of go back to, is the fact that when we set SMART goals where I work now, 90% of them are set at the end of the year. And so we're not actually setting goals for what we want to achieve. We're looking back at what we've done and re-engineering the whole system. And so when I think about that, I'm like, well, structure means nothing without meaning. You know, there are some places and you'll set these goals and without asking yourself what it actually means and why you want to achieve it, like, you're not going anywhere. And that's not to say that frameworks are bad. Systems, frameworks, guides, flipping SOPs, standard operating procedures, all of these things have a place. But is a framework the best way for you to create change? I would argue probably not on its own at least. And this isn't saying that what we're doing here isn't going to create a framework, but more importantly, is that framework working for you, or are you working for it? Are you trying to fit yourself into a box, such as a SMART goal, or are you creating the box yourself that fits the goal-setting framework you want and arguably probably should have? The thing about goals in themselves is that many people already know what they need to do. If we take health goals, for example, is losing weight, they know that they need to burn more calories and they need to eat healthier. So me sitting there and saying, right, that SMART goal, I want to lose weight by this point, this amount, is it realistic? Probably, if I do these things. Great, fantastic. But if you already know what you need to achieve, then the mechanics of that isn't going to move you, because you could quite easily just say, no, I don't really fancy it today. I'm four cheat meals deep this week. I might as well just see it out and then we'll start again next week. You know what it means, or you know what to do, but that mechanic isn't moving you to do it. It's the meaning behind the goal that is going to help you more so than just sitting there and writing a framework out. And so I have it here. I've lost it. That was arguably, as I turn around to look at my bookshelf and then realise that the book isn't where I left it. The book Start With Why by Simon Sinek. Absolutely fantastic book, and I absolutely implore you, if you're looking at goal setting or purpose-driven action, is to look at and read Simon Sinek's book. You know, the whole idea is depth before direction. So when we look at something that we want to achieve, i.e., let's go back to our example of losing weight. Why do we want to lose weight? As parents, the likelihood is so that you can play with your kids, so that you're more able, you've got more energy, you can do more things. And simply asking why really gives you a meaning behind that. But often when we look at frameworks, we're not thinking about the why behind the goals that we want to achieve. You know, the thing that this book gives you is a simple, accessible entry point into real depth behind goal setting and things that you want to look at. And it kind of gives it to you in a way, it delivers the message in a way that is recognisable for everyone. I had an absolutely fantastic time reading this book. I think it's so easily digestible, though the message within it, while it might seem simple on the front of start with why really gives us an understanding of how, just by asking and adding that one simple word into I want to achieve X, but why? Why is that goal important to start with? And that the whole thing of asking why, of looking for more meaning, of developing the things that you want to achieve further than the surface level, it really highlights the power of it, and that most people never go far enough. You know, a lot of people are achieving a lot of different things, and my goal with this podcast is to provide meaningful and reflective space for people or parents to come and sit and understand and hopefully develop systems that work for themselves. But people very rarely ask why. And for me, it's because I need it too. In coaching the clients that I have and developing as a coach, I need to ask myself why, and I need to ask myself how I achieve my goals. And so when we do start to ask why and start to ask for meaning in the things that we're saying, they become a lot more personable. You become a lot more in tune with the things that you want. And if you have an overarching purpose in life, or a mission, or a kind of statement of how you're going to live your life, then asking why also acts as accountability for you. You go further than just saying, I want to achieve this, but it's in asking why we're saying, does this align with what I want from my life? So when I set myself that mission, that purpose of educating, guiding and inspiring people to do better and to become the person that they want to be, because I needed that growing up when I became a dad and kind of as I've transitioned through adulthood, everything that I do now becomes part of that purpose and that drive to do things better. And I think there's one key message that I want to say here, is that asking why and taking a step back from just going off and achieving, action is what matters. When we take that step back, it's not a sign of failure at all. Most goal setting advice is designed to remove that level of meaning behind it. The framework of why we want to achieve things, or what we want to achieve, doesn't take into account the deeper connection that you might have to that idea, that goal, that milestone, however you want to kind of put it across. But by asking why, you should never see yourself as a failure. It removes the barrier to entry, if anything. And for you as a parent, your why probably aligns with becoming the best dad or the best mum that you could possibly be. And so that's just kind of, when we start to ask that, it's not just surface level elements. And if we look slightly deeper into the whole meaning of why when we set goals, we can look at this through kind of that research anchor. Why starts to activate different elements in our brain. It speaks to the limbic system, which is those emotions, that trust and that motivation, because as we'll probably cover slightly later in a different episode, motivation doesn't come from, I can't wait to be motivated to do this thing. It comes from having an emotional attachment to it. It comes from having the emotional response and the emotional change element within you to make you develop and just do the thing. Motivation isn't kind of an intrinsic element in so much as I can switch my motivation on. I am driven to create something, by which point motivation becomes a side product. But also in asking why, we start to activate the neocortex, so that logic, language and planning element of it. And you start to plan things out. How am I going to achieve that? What are the milestones along the way of achieving those goals that I'm setting? Because now I understand the why behind what I'm trying to do. I can start to plan out what that looks like. And the logic in losing weight becomes, well, I need to go to the gym. I need to remove some of the snacks from my house. I need to do more steps. That logical element, when we attach it with the meaning and the why element, everything starts to become better. So when you're looking at the goals that you want to achieve, if you can start to engage both of these by asking why, you're infinitely more likely to act upon it and infinitely more likely to actually start doing things towards that goal, all by just asking that one little word and going deeper than surface level. And to bring this back to the why behind this podcast, the why I became a coach. 2021, my little boy was born, and I will openly admit that I was struggling. I started floundering. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted to do. This whole new role for me had been kind of not thrust upon me. I knew it was coming. It wasn't a surprise. When I started kind of getting coaching myself and looking at the things I wanted to achieve, I realised that there was more to this. There was more to the things I wanted to do. It wasn't just about me anymore. My why became providing my son and my wife with the best possible life I could by being the best human being I can and supporting people that also need help. You see, the thing when we look at values, and I value freedom, I like to work and creatively expand my horizons. I like the freedom to talk to people that need help. I like the family element within that. Without my family, I would be nothing. I've had a little mentee bee along the way. And so my why of wanting to come back out of that as well was to be there for my son, to instill the message and lessons that he needs to live a happy and fulfilling life. And so when we look at the values and also the identity behind it as well, if you identify as someone that achieves things, asking yourself why becomes a whole lot easier. As a parent, our time is constantly taken up with different things. And so by asking why and engaging that kind of neocortex element, we start to be able to plan things in when we can. If that's when the little one goes down for a sleep, then grabbing a book or jumping on. My wife's got a Peloton, and so that works for her. But if we're floundering on these surface level goals, then with no emotional attachment to them, it becomes a darn sight harder to make progress and to really embrace the drive that we need to do to achieve those things. Pardon me, sorry. And so kind of the next element that's within that is linking it back to that motivation versus meaning part. Motivation is only as good as your drive to achieve the goal itself. If we were going to bring a statement out between that. Motivation ebbs and flows, it rises and falls, much like a wave, and we can't really control when that happens. And so you've probably heard all of these people talk about build a system, but in reality they are right. But for us, when we set goals, what I want that system to be is an emotionally charged, meaningful and purposeful system. There is no, I want to do this, here's my system, ABC, XY squared. It doesn't work. When we start to look at, I want to develop a podcast that helps parents navigate life, work and everything in between, insert statement piece for this one, I ask myself why, and it's because I need that help. I've needed that help, and I want to be able to capture the lessons and the thoughts that I have as I navigate life and navigate learning and developing as a coach and as an individual, in the hopes that someone else might need that as well. So now, sitting down to record these things and sitting down to record the audio if you're listening, or if you're on YouTube and you're watching this kind of, not live, but if you're watching the video, and you've seen my hands going mental as I kind of gesticulate and explain my point, I can't help that. My motivation becomes a lot easier. My drive is there to create the thing that matters to me. And motivation follows. So when we look at all of these people that have set these New Year's resolutions that you then don't see 2 weeks later, it's because they've not gone past that surface level. Things get hard, so they put it off, and as James Clear says, you can miss one day, but after that you're screwed. They miss one day, and then they miss two, and then they start making excuses that it's okay for them to go back next week, but then next week never comes. And it's only when you get to the December that you realise you've been paying for a gym membership for 12 months you haven't actually used. And so those surface level goals collapse as soon as that motivation drops, as soon as something stands in the way of you achieving that thing. You know, you can't get on the right machine, even something as small as that for an exercise related goal. And so the clear why between that becomes something for your goal to fall back on, something for your motivation to fall back on. It acts as that continuum in a way. If you imagine a line through your progress, motivation drops, but it isn't going to drop further because it hits your why and you start to then bounce back from it. And so finally, when we look at kind of a question for you to ask is, are the goals that you're setting actually yours in the first place? Or are you looking at what social media or peers, partners, friends, people around you are setting and thinking that that's for you as well? Your goals in themselves are deeply personal things, as they should be. Setting a goal for someone else, you're less likely to achieve it. If your partner's saying you should lose weight, I know full well that I'd be getting a slap if I said that. But also you should be asking yourself why. Why do they want you to lose weight? Is it a goal that you want? You might be completely happy and power to you. But if they're trying to impart their values onto you, then often that doesn't work. And the thing about goals is that you can't outsource them. You know, you can't hire someone to help you lose weight. Because at the end of the day, nutritionists can give you a nutrition plan, but it's only you that's actually going to be able to follow that. And so having something that's personal, something that you own, something that you might well have written on the wall or in a book or on your phone, it doesn't matter where, that you've written out and you're owning that and you're authentic with that goal, then you're more likely to get there. And so as I kind of close out this episode, I want to, thank you for tuning in, but also goals can really be achieved as soon as we start looking beyond just one thing in itself. And, if you've liked this episode, then please, by all means, rate it on whatever platform you're listening to it on, but also feel free to reach out to me on any of the kind of social media links below. And I'm more than happy to kind of have a chat about what you want to set, how you're going to set it, and why it matters to you, because I think it's important. But there's one thing that I want to do in every episode of this podcast, and that's ask a question of you, not of you really, but ask a question that's reflective, that you can then take a couple of minutes to think about. Because as coaches, proper coaches will tell you, we might well help you understand a subject such as this, but it's only until you take ownership of that it really makes a difference. And so as I look at my notes just below me, the question I want to ask is, if all of the goals that you currently have were taken away today, which ones would you continue to chase because they matter most? And I'll let that sit with you. And thank you ever so much for tuning in. I've been Chris, you've been great, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.